Hello and welcome to this chemistry tutorial video on atomic structure. What we're going to be looking at in this video is we're going to be looking at the atom and what makes up the atom. And more importantly, what are the properties of those different parts that make up the atom. So all we're going to start with today is we're just going to start with the simplest atom in the periodic table. So let's begin with hydrogen. So hydrogen has the chemical symbol H. Okay, now if I was to illustrate some hydrogen for you, what I would do is I'd draw a small little circle in the centre, I'd then draw another circle around that one, and at the top I draw a little X. Okay, but what on earth are all these different structures? So what we've got is we've got two main parts to the atom. The first is this part in the centre. Okay, now this part in the centre is our nucleus. Okay, so we have the nucleus in the centre of the atom. Going around the outside, this circle here, okay, this is known as a shell. Now atoms will only ever have one nucleus, but they could have multiple shells, more than one. So what's within these different structures? So within the nucleus you'll notice that there is one particle. Okay, I only have one particle in this hydrogen nucleus. Now this is one of the three subatomic particles that you need to know. So this subatomic particle is known as a proton. Okay, so we'll talk about the properties of these different subatomic particles later, okay, but we have this proton in the centre. Now what's this one going around the outside in the shell? Okay, well the shells contain electrons. Okay, so we have this nucleus with here in hydrogen one proton, and we have this shell, okay, with electrons, and you'll notice that hydrogen has just one electron in the outside of it. Now if we were to look at another element, okay, so this time let's think about, we're going to talk about lithium. No, we're not going to talk about lithium. So let's say we're going to talk about a different element, okay, how about helium? Okay, helium is the next element along in the periodic table after hydrogen. Hydrogen, helium. Okay, if I was to draw helium, it would look slightly different. Okay, this time it's going to have two circles in the centre, and one of those circles I'm going to make look different to the other one. It's also going to have a circle going around the outside of it, but this time on this circle it's going to have two crosses. Okay, so there's something new here. What we've still got is we've still got our nucleus in the centre, and we've still got our shell going around the outside. But this time we have another subatomic particle, this one here. Now this subatomic particle is known as a neutron. Okay, and a neutron is something that isn't in our hydrogen. Okay, so we have a neutron there. So you'll notice that these two are slightly different. Now in a future video I'll talk about how we know they're slightly different and what information we can get from the periodic table that helps us to draw these. But for the moment, the key things that you need to pick up on is our atoms, okay, are made up of two distinct parts. Okay, there's shells that are around the outside of the structure in the middle that's known as the nucleus. Now one of the crazy things about atoms is all of this stuff, okay, that's in between, okay, our nucleus and our shells, and then the stuff that's between the shells that go out further of that is just nothing. Absolutely nothing. And it's quite hard to get your head around. Okay, so the majority of an atom is actually just empty space. There's nothing there. Okay, but what we do know is we have this nucleus that's got protons and neutrons in it, and these shells that have electrons around the outside of it. Okay, so what do we actually need to know about these different structures? So there is a table that you need to be able to recall. So what we're going to do is we're going to draw that table. Okay, so what we've got here is we've got this table that's wonderfully magically appeared. So this table, okay, is going to be the table that you're going to need to remember. So it's going to have some different headings. So the first heading it's going to have subatomic particles along the time there. I'm just going to write subatomic for the moment. What it's also going to have is it's going to have mass, it's then going to have charge, and then it's going to have location. Now in this table here, what you're going to have to do is just fill it all in. Okay, there are three different subatomic particles, but what you'll often get is given this table, but it will have gaps in it, so you just need to fill it in. So the subatomic particle we'll have up top will be proton, okay, and then we'll have neutron, and then down the bottom here we'll have electron. Okay. So mass. What is mass? Well, if you go a little bit further on, we'll talk a little bit about moles and some other more complex chemistry calculations, and we talk a little bit about what the mass actually is. But the mass here is just what we're going to call relative mass. So it's just the mass that's relative to one another. So these numbers are nice and easy that you need to remember. Okay, the first is a proton. Okay, proton has a relative mass of 1. A neutron has a relative mass of 1. Essentially, if you were to compare the mass of a proton and a neutron, they would be the same. Okay, well, what about an electron? Well, actually, an electron, okay, has such a tiny mass that we consider it to have a negligible mass, i.e. 0. Okay, it does have a value. It's about 1 over 1800, but you don't need to know that. Okay, you just need to know that it has a negligible mass, and if you write its mass down as 0 in an exam, that is completely fine. Okay, well, what about charges? Okay, so the charge of a proton, okay, has plus 1. Okay, now it's really, really important that you have the charge as plus 1. You can't just write it as 1, you need to write it as plus 1. Okay, our neutron has a charge of 0, and that's kind of where it gets its name from. Okay, or these are where they get their name from. So if you look at a neutron, okay, a neutron has a charge of 0, and it's neutral, doesn't have an overall charge. Proton has a charge of plus 1, okay, because it's positive, pro. The electron, okay, is negative, and it has a charge of minus 1. Okay, so you need to make sure that you write minus 1. You can't just write minus. It's a key thing there. Last but not least, just the location. So the proton, okay, is in the nucleus. Okay. The neutron is in the nucleus. And the electron, okay, well, they're found in shells. Okay. So those are the main things that you need to be able to recall about the subatomic particles. So just a recap of what we talked about in this video. Okay, what we've talked about is we've talked about the atoms, we've talked about the structure of those atoms, what makes them up, the subatomic particles that make them up. So those subatomic particles are found in the nucleus, okay, and in shells around the outside of the atom. In the nucleus we find protons and neutrons, and in the shells around the outside we find electrons. And this table that I've drawn here, okay, this is the table that you need to remember, okay, because it's often the first question in an exam where they're talking about atomic structure. Anyway, thank you very much for watching this video. Please do check out the other videos in this little series, and I hope they are of some use to you. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you in the next video.